Welcome back to Personalization Outbreak podcast, where we explore the ever-evolving world of leadership. Now, in today's episode, we'll take a deep dive into how community colleges are reinventing themselves in the wake of the pandemic, embracing diversity, and fostering well-being for their students. Our guest today is Desirée Portillo Rabinov. Desirée serves as Strategic Planning Manager Consultant with Community Connections, LLC, in Transportation Planning and Community Outreach. Elected in March of 2020, Desirée now sits on the Board of Trustees at Glendale Community College in Southern California. Now, as a leader, Desirée is involved in budget oversight, accreditation, local, state, and federal academic and funding policies, campus curriculum, instruction, hiring needs, and much more. Join us as we delve into the critical role of leadership in adapting to change, building strong relationships with community partners, and implementing innovative strategies to ensure that students are prepared for success in this new era. Now, before we get started, please click the like button below, share it with your colleagues, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and social media at Glen Yopis. Let's get started. You are listening to Personalization Outbreak, a podcast about the collapse of traditional corporate standards in today's more personalized world. I'm Glen Yopis. I'm a leadership strategist, author, contributor to Forbes, and founder of the Leadership in the Age of Personalization movement. On this show, I'm interviewing executives across multiple sectors to find out how the balance between standardization and personalization can exist. Desirée, I've been really looking forward to having this discussion. Thank you for joining the show.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
Well, thank you, Desirée. Well, first of all, let's get this on the table. You are Latina. You live in Southern California. You're witnessing a massive cultural demographic shift in Southern California, right outside of Los Angeles and Glendale.
Mm-hmm.
What is the current state, because of this, of community colleges, and how are they helping working adults develop their educational plan and path?
Excellent question. And thank you for asking for that because, as I first started in my first term as a trustee, we entered into the pandemic. And this was a difficult challenge for all community colleges, statewide and nationwide. And we essentially lost about 1 million students during that time. But more specifically in California, we lost more than 250,000 students. So it was a dramatic shift that we saw in terms of decline of enrollment. And so we, as community college trustees and also faculty and staff, we had to regroup and look at this and say, how do we go through this recovery process and how do we continue to do our work in a way that will help our students get through the pandemic and get their education effectively? So we had to shift. Quite frankly, we had to shift quite quickly. We had to adapt to the new norm of working from a hybrid to a completely virtual environment. And we had to look at what changes do we need to make internally. And luckily, we did have a task force in trying to identify what are some of the issues that we're confronted with. And essentially, this is something that we had to do anyway. I think it accelerated the process. It was really important for us to look at our marketing, rebranding, outreach, social media platforms, prioritizing social and basic needs for our students. And by doing this, we looked back and said, what are our core functions of our community college and how do we retain and make sure that our students are going to continue and complete their program? We have a very strong, like most colleges, community colleges, a transfer pathway. Glendale is one of the highest ranking colleges of ensuring that our students are going to earn a bachelor's degree. So we reevaluated that and made sure that we had to conform our virtual environment to help our STEM students, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, to transfer appropriately to a UC or CSU system. So we are successful in that. We wanted to emphasize what we could do on a virtual platform and help them get there. That was one. And we typically also train our students in career technical education. That's very much in terms of certification, where they may not get an AA degree, but they could stack their certifications so they can qualify for jobs, higher paying jobs. And areas that we wanted to emphasize as part of our outreach and assistance to our students was really, we have a strong welding program, we have a great mechanics program, a strong science and technology field, such as in the nursing areas. And those are really strong technology areas where we wanted to ensure that our students were going to succeed, and especially the job skills are changing even more rapidly. And we wanted to ensure that they would be competitive in that market. And we also, it was a variety of things that we had to reinvest and relook at and do it in a way that they could successfully get through. In terms of our adult, population, we know that, we had to be more flexible. We had to adapt. They're working, full time, or part time, and their needs are different. And of course, they're parents as well, and so we have to retool that as well and look at evening classes, weekend classes, and also create an environment on a virtual platform where we have asynchronous instruction, so that they can come back after work or anytime during the day, they can take their coursework and complete that. We have a very strong, Glendale is one of the largest CalWorks programs. If you're not familiar with that, it's individuals that are being subsidized through the Department of Social Services. They receive a subsidy to help support their families. And one of the programs is to get them into either a vocational education training program or through a community college program where they can at least support, as single parents, their families. And we have one of the largest programs in the state of California. And so we worked really closely to ensure that those parents would get whatever childcare support services and also mentoring that they needed in counseling. So
Desirée, if I may real quick, Desirée.
Sure.
As I listen, there are so many things that we had to be more nimble towards. We had to be more agile and flexible. What was maybe the biggest surprise that community colleges encountered? Did they expect so many people not enrolling, or was it that maybe we should have been more flexible all along, but we got stuck in feeling comfortable and doing what we always did? What was the big kind of aha moment?
Well, the aha, that's a good point. And I think what transpired with all of this is that we recognized that our schools weren't moving into a modern technology in a way that was more nimble and flexible and adapting to the needs of our existing student population. And you're right. It was an eye-opening experience to see that we needed to pivot very quickly, look at what our resources were and how we're going to improve and upgrade those resources and tools. And one of the concerns is that many of our students were not, equipped with laptops, Wi-Fi, hotspots. We recognized that they were coming to our campus to use our computer labs, but that's no longer available during the pandemic. So how are we going to ensure that they're going to receive the education they needed? So we had to completely reevaluate and say, my goodness, let's get those laptops to them. We need to supply that information. They need to have Wi-Fi. They shouldn't be hanging around at Starbucks or at our parking lot to do their schoolwork and finding a location so that they could actually utilize the cloud-based programs. And so we really understood that we had to make those changes quite rapidly. And we had to definitely ensure that our instructors were able to teach online. And that was the other thing too, because many of our instructors were so traditionally used to the in-person type training where we had to equip them with the tools and also the education of how to utilize the virtual landscape. And so luckily we had people in-house to help our faculty, and we also hired consultants to come in to help support that effort as well.
No, Desirée, I mean, let's face it. I mean, all of higher education went through a sense of shock and awe of just how unprepared we were, not to just deal with the crisis of the magnitude that it's been, but also just the unique needs that individual students have that oftentimes maybe we don't know enough about what their limitations are. So we end up making assumptions about what they are or they're not. So in many cases, this was a good, like you mentioned before, an accelerant to get us to be to where we should have been going, which leads me to my next question. As a member of the board of trustees at Glendale Community College, Desirée, how has the role of a trustee evolved, especially when you consider all these changes that have taken place? Because I've got to imagine that even the compositions of a trustee, of what it means to be a trustee, especially during these times of reinvention, they've probably changed a bit.
Yes, they did. We had to shift our focus and become knowledgeable about other areas that had been less proximal to our work. And that includes like remote work. And that was another change that occurred, especially, with staff and faculty, that alone there were some legal constraints, involved. And that was something different that we had to deal with, and how to craft policies to treat employees fairly and equitably, and while still working to achieve our mission of serving our students. We also had to manage policies on employee and student health, including vaccination policies, return to work, periods of isolation and masking. So those are also things that we had to learn more about. How do we create those policies and ensure that, how do we respond in an emergency demand immediacy, and how do we shift those policy focuses and priorities? And that was something new to us in managing and re-engaging those discussions with our unions and staff. And so that was a big part of it, of us, and working in that space. Mm-hmm.
So Desirée, clearly enrollment has been a challenge, but now in 2023, how have things turned around?
Well, things are finally turning around. I think during this recovery task force approach that we're taking is we're starting to, it's not a one solution, that's going to make the big change. It's multiple assessments through, student surveys, retooling our message, as I mentioned earlier, branding, student clubs, financial aid, instruction, online, high flex, in person. So a lot of that is part of the solution of how do we navigate and how do we respond to ensure that we can bring in new students, but also retain our existing ones. So yeah, we, across the country, California, we're leading in the recovery process, I believe, similar to the national trends, but Glendale has seen a leveling off of enrollment declines. As of this spring, we're now within the 1 to 3% range of increasing our enrollment in the core areas. So we believe that in the coming, semesters, we'll start seeing that increase come incrementally into a better situation now that we've are adapting our programs to their needs. And I think that's the key area, is that we're having to adapt. We're having to look at our modeling and what we need to do to help our students. Instead of, we want to identify what they want to do post-college. And then from that starting point, we will help them get to that point and figure out what coursework that they need to do. Because usually it's just enroll and just take these courses. But what we need to know is, what do you want to do after you complete college? And then we can customize that training that you need, the education to get there. So
excuse me, Desirée, that's really the whole goal here, is that how do we get to see and know our students better. And I think, all of what's happened in higher education over the past 3 years has been about that. How do we see them? How do we know them? What do they want in their career, especially adult learners, right? I mean, what are they striving for next? And, part of what as I listen to you, Desirée, that really makes me think is a community college like Glendale. I mean, it's a wonderful campus. It's been around for years. It's been the heartbeat of the San Gabriel Valley. But how do you mobilize a community like Glendale to support what's in the best interest of students, given that the hope is here that we can create jobs for people, not just in Glendale, but in and throughout the Southern California area? How does the community and community leaders, how do they play a role in this reinvention?
Well, it's extremely important because community leaders need to know that we have, qualified students working, that are taking courses that are in the workforce already. Many of them are, and they are, either upskilling, they're getting new, skills. They're up, getting some retraining, and working closely with our businesses and their community. We need to know what the workforce trends are, and we need to ensure that we're keeping up with what their demands and what their needs are. And so it's important that we have those conversations and that we have that dialogue and have them attend our career days, come work with us. Also, hire our students for internships. And that's really critical so that they do get that hands-on experience and help them make those career choices down the road. So it's very important that we always have that collaboration and partnership, inviting them to campus, participating in some of our events that we conduct on campus. And, we have a performing arts program, which we have plays and dances. And we also have the Symphony of the Verdugos, which is an orchestra that also performs in different locations within the San Gabriel Valley, but are also performing on campus as well. And we have fabulous, artists and talent and musicians. Yeah. So it's a critical component of us ensuring that we are engaged with the community, bringing in nonprofit organizations that can utilize our facilities and also look at ways to partner with us. And one of those is with the Glendale Latina Association. We invite them to a campus. They can share some of the history and culture to our students and also provide scholarships to our students. So that's the other important aspect is a lot of these nonprofit organizations and civic-based organizations will help support our students financially. And that's what we want to see those partnerships do.
That's wonderful, Desirée. So as we think about what today's community college student needs and wants, I mean, I know there in Glendale, California, you have quite a composition of culturally diverse populations. If you can share what those numbers are and maybe share, what are their unique needs and wants?
Yes, our population has changed, quite over the time, that we've been here in Glendale. And now we've seen a shift where we have our women that are here in our credit programs. We have at least 55% that are female. And then we have 58% that are under 26 years old. And our overall demographics of the population, we have 34% Caucasian, and over 24% is Latino, and a little over 18% is Armenian. And then we have API at about 9%, and our Filipino and Black Americans are at 4%. So there's a dramatic shift that we have a great diversity on campus. And I think it's critically important that we continue to foster that, build those relationships, create an opportunity where they could share their cultural identities and also make it multicultural, where all the different student clubs could interact with each other, have events for families to come on campus. We find that it's very, very important to have an inclusive feeling of our school and also that they feel that they can belong on campus. And it's critically important that we, continue to address those types of events because they're important. I feel that they're extremely important for us to build our enrollment, have better access to our programs. And I think these diverse groups will really lend to feeling this opportunity of growth in their lives. And I think this is a great campus that really has harnessed this. And now we've, ensured that we are doing this monthly and creating more activities as we go out to communities to consider us as a college campus.
Thank you, Desirée. Now, as we wrap it up, I know that the importance of mental health and what it means to the overall learning experience for students and teachers it's taken on a whole new meaning in life, not just at school. How has this changed the experience for faculty members and students?
Yeah, this was a dramatic change, that we had to work with. And it did. I mean, the pandemic really impacted mental health, both, from an employee standpoint and students. And, because of the increased social isolation and anxiety, they needed more support services. And, our students were facing depression. And, similarly, there was increased burnout with our employees as well. Having the long range of this emergency, separation was overwhelming. So it was difficult because you're trying to balance your work and home life, but you're locked into one place, and there was not enough space for your working environment. So what we really ramped up our health center, which started this whole new wellness and well-being program, where every week we would bring experts to come and talk about, ways to work through your anxiety and isolation and, ask questions and look at counseling and have those opportunities. And most of this was all free, and providing that opportunity for students or even staff to utilize that type of support. And so we brought in, experts in a variety of different areas. But we also were proactive too in wellness by including regular opportunities for students and employees to help support their health. And what we also established, weekly basis on access to the fitness center, which is free. We had yoga, we had meditation exercises, software where people can download and do it independently, in their own private time. We had relaxation events at our planetarium. And then we even had students come and also faculty to even bring their puppies or dogs to play with on campus, just as a way to comfort themselves and feel the support of, the animal touch. And so that was very, very successful. So those are the ways that we were able to integrate a lot of new ways of allowing a new wellness experience and not feel rigid about what we can do to help our health of our family on campus. And so those are the things that we did.
Well, Desirée, thank you so much for sharing the challenges, the opportunities, and it's clear that a lot of progress has been made, but we need to continue to have leaders like you and others in support of community colleges across America, because this is the heart of America's future. It's in community colleges, and we can't forget about that. And I want to thank you again, the Board of Trustees, all the students at Glendale Community College and leaders in and throughout Glendale and Southern California for the work that you guys are doing. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, Denise.
Thank you so much, Glenn, and thank you for having me with you.
Oh, no, you bet. And as we end every show, when you lead in the age of personalization, you will see things that others don't. Do what others won't, and keep pushing when prudence says quit. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Personalization Outbreak. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. If you enjoyed the content, visit ageofpersonalization.com to check out our free streaming video series and learn how to get involved in the movement. I'm Glenn Yopes. I wish you a good day, and remember, without strategy, change is merely substitution, not evolution.